The ASMR is crazy. Oh, crisp.
It's my favorite thing to do. If you're drinking an energy drink or a soda and the crack is not crisp.
Like carbonated salty.
Yeah, anything carbonated, it's not a good drink. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's up, guys? Your boy Bacon Soldier back at you with another vlog. No, I'm kidding. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Office Hours Unscripted, Episode 7. How AI is recreating, reshaping your career path. Today we're going to really talk about all things AI, how we've kind of seen it in our jobs, where we think the best use cases are, maybe when you're going too far, and everything else. So, as always, I'll let Adam open up with it since it was kind of his idea to talk about it. So where should we start?
Yeah, I think let's start with kind of how the industry and our careers are being rewritten by AI, because maybe, honestly, like less than 6 years ago, like up until maybe a year or two of COVID, so let's say like 4 to 5 years ago, from like 2014 to like 2022, coding was the big thing. It was like, okay, learn SQL, learn Python, learn Java, learn R, learn different ways to have a skill that a lot of people either have to study for 4 years in college or independently on their own to become really great at, and then you can leverage that throughout the rest of your career. Now, I'm not saying that that's not still true anymore, but there was an overemphasis, and now there's kind of a large or an abundance of a population that actually does know how to code. So that skill set in the industry, and especially in tech companies that don't need to hire as many engineers and software developers, that's slowly declining. But what is now the new kind of coding across the industry, I would say, is AI. And the reason I say that is because look at OpenAI with ChatGPT, look at Anthropic with Claude, and the various like DeepSeek and things like that, the various other AI applications that are taking over the world by storm, right? The average consumer, just like a Google or an Amazon or Facebook, a Netflix, are still able to use these applications, but the people that are going to drive these products and these softwares forward are going to be, if for lack of a better term, super users, or the people that are able to develop and influence how we interact as consumers with these tools. So I think with that kind of backdrop, one of the things that I'm thinking a lot about, and I will do for myself, and I would suggest and recommend to other people to do for themselves, is start to immerse yourself in the world of AI in a way that if someone says, oh, do you know how to run a dashboard through Claude? Or do you know how to take a series of, hyper complex manual sheets or Word documents or whatever it is, and synthesize that very quickly and efficiently with AI tools? That, I believe, is where we're going to need to start to go, because if you're not able to do these things, you're going to be left behind. There are so many value-added activities that now the average entry-level employee is going to be expected to be able to do. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have some difficulty. So I'll stop there. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually wanted to start out with like the bad side of it. Some of the things we talked about prior, and even something that just popped in my head. I'll start off with the first one on like who I believe should not be using this. If you're in high school, bro, do not use AI. Like And it's like a, what's the word? Like hindsight's 20/20 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like what's hard for us now, is just a different version of what was hard for us when we were in high school.
100%.
But like, it just makes no sense to me to use AI to cheat your way through like the basics of life, whatever it is, math, science. Like compared to what you go through later in life, high school's like nothing.
Yep.
Even if you're like try-harding at APs, honors, but like, you should not be. I don't think you should be using AI in high school, because especially if you go through high school maybe only taking a few honors classes or like rarely any APs, once you get to college and like you actually have a workload that you did not have in high school, you're only making that adjustment harder for yourself. But that's besides the point, I guess.
I will push the thinking a little there. I'll caveat with, I agree. I would recommend not using AI for any of your AP classes or anything like that. But for your personal life, if you're like, hey, I'm going to come up with like, and I was going to get into this as like a use case of like, not every AI application has to be professional. I think about how I've used it to be like, yo, I want to take this trip potentially to Taiwan or whatever it is, right?
It's like a search tool.
I don't like, what are some of the best flights? Like, I live in Philly. Like, should I actually be thinking about flying out of Newark and JFK? Like, instead of me having to do all these independent research queries, I can run a really good prompt into any of the AI tools that I'm using or fielding, and they're going to be able to give me a great deal of results back, right? So if I'm in high school and like, I don't know, like a good example, what were the things we were doing 16, 17 years old? Like, oh, I got my first girlfriend. I don't really know what a good date idea is. Like, can I get a list of date ideas in insert city, whatever you live in, right? Like, that's fine. I see no problem with it. I think that's a great use case. They still get to build their understanding of the AI tool and platform without losing that aspect of like thinking critically for themselves while they're taking their classes.
Tell your girl that your date idea was from ChatGPT. See how that go for you.
And that's going to be amazing.
No high school, no relationship. AI should be free of those things.
Oh man,
but that was
so. This guy's a father.
I say that just I try to categorize like kind of these context or setting. We're talking about the use of AI, and since we don't do it in some of the other episodes, so besides the high school context, the other bad context that maybe we should get out the way is just we acknowledge the impact that AI has on the environment. So we do say a lot of this with a caveat. I'll start off with saying, for sure, the one thing I hear all the time on Instagram, TikTok, between friends who don't use it, is the impact it has on the environment through its usage of water.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the counter argument that there are other things agriculturally that we do that use just as much, if not more, water, like corn production, which is obviously not an apples to apples comparison because like corn is good for the environment. Like we eat it, other things eat it, so there's a massive benefit that maybe AI can arguably not give. But we bring that up to say, like, if you're heavily using it and you're benefiting from it, you should also be an advocate for like the responsible and ethical use of it. So you should
application of AI.
Yeah, and I think you had an example that you'll maybe give after, but like you want to be questioning what the end goal of like these big companies are. You want to be questioning like what their investments are in terms of helping the communities that they are impacting. Like I read somewhere on Instagram that there was just like a 20-year satellite study done that the environments that these data centers are in are making like drastic temperature changes between like 6 and 16 degrees, which is obviously huge for depending on where it is, especially as it relates to like livestock and cattle and whatever. So I think when you hear things like that, you should push to be an advocate of that change, that like these big corporations should be investing into those communities and making sure that they're not absolutely destroying where they're putting them. Which it's still a privilege to say that, because at the end of the day, like as much as I can advocate for it, I can use it too, and like 100%. Nothing really happens. But just keep that in the back of your head. Like there is a point where you may have to question, like, am I using it too much? Are we going down a dark path? Like, how can I help that? Blah, blah, blah. So we say that just to give some perspective and awareness, as it is kind of a privileged conversation to talk about these things because it doesn't directly affect us. So bad things aside, do you want to go on to a next good point? Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you had your 3 points, so
I
knock them out.
I did have a few points. I think we got the first one out of the way. The second one, I think you got into it. It's like you started talking about the bad use cases, but what are some of the good use cases out there? I'm going to split this into 2 sub points. I think there's one like professional use cases, and then there's the just personal life, personal ambitions, whatever that looks like, right? I'll start off with the professional applications because I use AI. I'd say if I had to look at like weekly usage, I'd probably run 50 prompts a week. And they're not all equal, but there are various use cases that I have for them. So one of them is, I'd say I'm actually quite good at like the English language and the rhetoric that I use and trying to speak in a neutral tone so that there's no one offended in my case team or no one offended by my clients or anything like that. But I do tend to, on longer emails that have significant implications on where we're driving direction, in our case, I will always run it through AI, simply because I treat it as another version of me. I want it to gut check me, right? So where I say, like, a good example is this week. There is someone on my team who I was like, oh, like, they're gatekeeping information. I don't know, for whatever reason, I was like Gen Z, that's the slang.
Hunt down my colleague.
Like stop gatekeeping information, right? And like, when I went through the email, like, I run through emails the same way that I would run through an essay. Just full steam ahead, whatever first comes to mind, I put it down there. And I know I need to review it and double check it. For whatever reason, I like put it in and say, yeah, I was like, yeah, like gatekeep one. And then it was like, it corrected and it was like, oh, stop withhold, like this person is withholding information, blah, 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 right? But that was great because I didn't really have time to double check this. This is something that like my team wanted very quickly and things like that. So like, if you're strapped for time, I think like refining what was 80 to 90% like my own original thought and what I needed, giving that little extra 10 to 20% I think is great as an application and professionally. A second one that I use probably quite often is when you're trying to brainstorm ideas, right? A lot of the times I'll be like, you know, I have this idea and this template or this guide that I want to start to create that I think should have, you know, column A, column B, column C, column D at X, Y, Z, right? And then I'll be like, do you, one, agree with the thinking that I'm using? Because I've already reprogrammed my settings for my AI companions to push against me. I hate that most of them are already coded to be like yes men, essentially. It would be your biggest hype men. I don't like that. So I'm like, do you agree with this? And then two, is there anything that I'm missing or anything else that you would consider that is not already explicitly written? This is great for me because it does two things at once. One, it's double checking my understanding, because if I was able to articulate it very well, then the AI is going to recap and or press me in areas where it was like, you know, I wouldn't actually frame it that way because of whatever, right? But also two, if I am missing anything, I get that extra input and I'm like, okay, ooh, I didn't think about that. But here is the kicker, and this is why I think, once again, going back to that first topic of, or first bullet point of like, how do you become a good user versus like just, you know, an okay user, is when I get any input that was not original thought, I pressure test it. And I say, okay, I hadn't considered this, but why do you think this would be valuable? I'm thinking about how my team might respond to this, and I'm thinking about how this could introduce new variables that could complicate the situation. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Because if it's not, I'm actually not going to take your consideration, your input here, right? And I think that is something that extra step is what draws the line between someone who's just casually using AI tools versus like taking it to the next level. Because the worst thing that you can do, especially in client services or whatever other like professional industry you're in, is put something out there that an AI tool hallucinated. And that is going to be super detrimental to like that's going to be detrimental to your career. So always pressure test it. So those would be like the quick two professional applications that I thought of. I'll give you one personal use case that I actually haven't started to use as much, but I have a lot of coworkers who are using it. Obviously, as you know, as consultants, we travel a lot. So I have some coworkers that have been using it to get like meal prep ideas, or like, hey, like what are like healthy spots this week, or like how do I diversify my diet, because I always order like kava bowls or sweet green or whatever it is, and like I want to try something new. And it's like a really great kind of a companion in that way to start to revitalize, hey, like I want to take control of like my personal health and my physical health, and like this is a great way to do it. But yeah, I'll like list off other ones like flights. You can be like, hey, like where am I flying to, blah blah blah. Just like different activities for trips. Like maybe you know the area, like maybe you know the location you want to go to. I'm going to go to Punta Cana and DR, right? But I don't actually know what I want to do besides like be at the resort, right? So these AI commands can give you a bunch of ideas. You can work with it to kind of like curate your itineraries and things like that, which back in the day, probably would have taken you 3 or 4 hours to do independently, and now you can have a good working itinerary in probably like 20, 30 minutes, and probably quicker depending on how efficient you are with your AI usage.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to use it for emails or planning my meals. Maybe it's like the kind of writer I am and the kind of person I am, but I can rarely like take someone else's opinion about like how I should write my email or what I should eat in a week because I'm so indecisive. So I'll just sit there and review it a million times, which maybe, like to your point, is something to improve on with AI. But I just can't imagine. Maybe that example you gave of like, hey, I have a long email where I have to like really summarize everything and get my point across because there is implications directionally. I will never be the person to use it for like a 1-sentence reply.
Oh, absolutely not.
And I know there are people
Absolutely
who do
not.
that. I have cousins who have like openly admitted to that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, at what point? Next thing you know, Apple's putting their version of ChatGPT into our phones, and now you're using it to text me back. Now I feel weird.
It takes you longer to do.
Just prompt it.
Yeah. I think that kind of gets into our last one, that last point of like, what's the cutoff line of AI application? Because there's a lot of great use cases out there, but it shouldn't be used for each and everything that you could think of.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to add to the like professional examples of like AI use cases, maybe more broadly. From what I've seen at my firm, and I think is what the case will slowly become more and more in all firms, is like we now push products. We're products and services heavy. We're not just like generic management or business consulting. At least that's what it is for our firm, where we're really pushing products that we can provide, not only the product in the moment, but then managed services after that. And now with our proprietary stuff and what's available and what's sold to our firms and other corporations, we can build products instantly. So if you're someone in college who's thinking about, hey, where do I want to go in 2 years, 3 years, I would think about your career, and it's like how sellable is it really? And I'll give a more specific example. Like, my background in accounting is not necessarily sellable yet as a service. It's like slowly getting there, but because of the nature of where it came from, so big scandals in the early 2000s, you have Sarbanes-Oxley. That is still very much a human-driven career. So it's very much a human-driven profession. We do not trust the tools that we have right now. So it will be long. It will be long before it can be pushed as a product or something that can manage itself.
Same thing as like any of your blue collar jobs, like construction.
Exactly.
How are you going to get AI
Great
to
point.
build your house?
Yeah,
for you,
exactly.
right?
So besides those like obvious ones, as you start going more into like management consulting, finance, like these tools are getting better and better at doing what someone can do, which is where they become sellable products and services. So again, just as some context and awareness, when you're thinking about how AI is maybe reshaping what you want to do, start to think about like, how can I fit in if it's becoming more of a sellable product and service? And if it's not, right, am I okay to like really learn the basics and the fundamentals? Which I guess our next point should be talking about the threshold. I think it's a really interesting discussion because again, for accounting, I still talk to some of my professors from Penn State in the accounting department, and they're trying to introduce AI and show kind of like how it still needs to make progress in the profession. But again, our profession is still very rooted in the fundamentals, where it came from. Like debits and credits will never leave us. And even if you say like, oh, AI can already do that, once you get to the point of like verifying financial statements, justifying management decisions, and what goes into an audit at the end of the year, that still needs a lot of progress in terms of AI. So the curriculum is pretty much still the same. But I know, I mean, I don't know if you've read a lot. I haven't, about like the SMEAL's like 5 and 5 plan.
I haven't.
But I know that the dean for SMEAL is now taking like a huge approach of like, we will be a leading AI college.
Which is very different than the education that we had.
Yeah, like I think we had a
3 years ago.
Yeah, I think we had a very like, we had old school professors, the ones that believed like where it came from is what it always will be. So I think the threshold depends on your profession. I think if you're someone who's maybe doing accounting and finance, as much as finance is being taken over by AI somewhat, I think you really should still understand the fundamentals. Like what an AI tool produces for you and what it's actually doing, because of how rooted it is in what people have done in the past.
I'll put it in like a very practical example because, yes, I think this is applicable to all fields, all industries. But like even as a human being, I get really scared when I'm in certain conversations because I'm thinking about a conversation that, like, to my knowledge, doesn't exist. But there are companies working on agentic AI solutions where, and when we say agentic, we basically mean like there's an agent. There is
someone not a human.
Yeah, there is some companion that is an add-on to the actual like software or tool that you're using that is running all of this. Like they're being the middleman to kind of combine what you're prompting, what you're solving for, and then running back with like whatever back-end software API, whatever they have to do to go against, and then marry that up to get the result that you want, right? But anyway, the conversation that we were having was like, instead of having like Instacart people have to go through the store and like say, oh yeah, like we don't have your turkey bacon, so do you want to substitute it with pork or do you not want it at all, and like wait for your response and all that stuff. An agentic AI solution is going to be able to go through that grocery store and be like, yeah, so they didn't have this, they didn't have this, they didn't have this. But also, based off your past history of last week, we know that you would never go for this, so that we've actually added your cart with this, blah, 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 blah. No human interaction involved. Within 5 to 10 seconds, you've got the decision that you can make at your fingertips that says, all right, out of the 15 items, two of them weren't there. They're the substitutes, yes or no. Boom. All right.
And then the person
just goes in and immediately gets it. You don't have to have that back and forth. A very specific use case, but it concerns me because then it makes me wonder, okay, how many people are going to become complacent? And obviously, like, we don't have to get into all of, like, the health benefits or risks, blah, blah, blah. But, like, diet should change. Like, you should be eating very different things as often as you can, because when you are only eating one thing each and every day or week or month or whatever it is, then you're not exposing your body to all the nutrients and variety that you should be having as you know, our current modern omnivore selves, right? And it makes me wonder, it's like, okay, if we start to rely on AI to do things like this, where it's like, you know what? Oh, I never have to think about food again. Yeah, I never have to think about my food order again. I'm just going to do the same thing each and every day.
I know AI is going to give me my pizza.
Don't have to think. Then, one, are we doing the right things for our physical health? But two, we're turning off a piece of our brain, albeit very, very small, that honestly, as one specific use case, is probably fine. But the more you stack that up, the more you're like, you know what? I never have to think about the gas station I go to because it automatically put it up on the GPS on every Thursday, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm keeping to it. And then actually it's integrating with my car. So my car is automatically like routing me and like giving me the time, telling me when I need to leave the house. Like,
car's talking to me.
We stop doing basic things like, oh, I should probably leave 20 minutes before I need to be here, even if it's only a 10-minute drive. Like, everything starts to get done for us. So then the question becomes, when am I thinking critically for myself? Mm-hmm. And if everything were to fail or crash at once, or I didn't have internet, I didn't have Wi-Fi, and I don't have those software solutions to tell me what I should be doing, and you haven't flexed those muscles in God knows how long, what are the implications that is going to have on us as a society, as people? And at the end of the day, this is like, I don't want to like fear monger or anything like that, but it's kind of my urge and like push to people to continue to drive as much original internal thought as you can in every aspect of your life, even if you are going to use AI to help supplement or help enhance it, because there like, just like, you know, you have Wi-Fi and it goes out, and you have electricity and it goes out, you have water and it goes out. And the moments where AI is not able to do what it can do, how do you respond? I mean, I have some coworkers that like, they're like, oh yeah, I use AI for everything. And when we have an outage and you can't use it for 24 hours, they're like, holy crap.
shallow
I'm
brain.
so scared. Yeah, right. So that's kind of what I think about as like my cut line. I think that cut line becomes very different for each and every person, but we're moving so quickly and so fast as companies, as people, that we need to be able to continually have the initiative to draw that line for ourselves, because at the end of it, no one's going to draw that line for you.
I think I always think about it as like a question of or concern of like authenticity, like what becomes the line of humans are still doing it versus AI. And I'll even say I think you slid in there somewhere, like you can use it as a support,
yes,
right, to supplement or complement what you're doing, whichever is better. But I think about like how much time I spent in high school or in college before AI was a thing. Like, let's say high school as an example. I spent a lot of time writing. Like, I just took a lot of writing classes. I had professors who like probably could have taught in college or universities, or even middle school. Like, I remember learning by hand sentence structure with like the lines, whatever it was called. I forget the formal name. And like, I get scared that even if we learn that now, like you still can lean on AI to just write better for you.
I also think you don't retain it as much.
But even academically, if you look past that, I think people, maybe it's tied to your initiative point, should have the curiosity to really dive into the things that they still find interesting. Like, let's take energy drinks. I think I mentioned in one of the episodes, like I drink it was the finance episode. I drink one of these every day. I love like getting new flavor every day. It's just something I look forward to. I could go in AI and say, hey, like what's in a can of Ghost, right? And in 5 seconds, I probably have some knowledge of all the things in there. Which like, okay, like is that valid? Yeah. Or I could go find studies on like each of the supplements that are in there. I could go on the Ghost website and actually read what they have on there. I could go on TikTok, Instagram, and find short form content on people testing like how many energy drinks they've had in a day, the effect it's had on their bodies. And it's like the difference between that and what AI, like what I get from
surface level answers all across the board. You're getting surface level answers,
and you could arguably do surface level. You could get surface level answers either way, or deep answers either, depending on how you prompt and stuff. But I probably learned so much more and engaged so much more with the product I'm having and with the things in it by doing the latter of like, hey, I'm going to go through several tabs of things. Yeah. I would never do that.
Think about what that does to your psyche, though. You spent a collective 45 to 60 minutes going individually, line by line, study by study, figuring out what is in there, right?
Yeah.
Versus that 5-10 minute conversation with the AI tool amongst however many prompts. You have an okay understanding. You could probably talk about this for like 2 minutes, but then after that, like you have none of the underlying detail. You have none of the actual unless you're pressure testing and saying like, oh, how much of this did you just make up to give me an answer? Like you don't really know if it's true or not. Versus if I can go back and cite the research study, the clinician, what's like at Stanford, whatever. Like that is. I won't say like it's that much stronger, but I think that is where you are able to continue to enable your mind to think critically, and then also like feel comfortable with the result. I know for me in particular, I'm never confident in something that AI gives me. I'm like, in theory, this could work, but like I don't actually know if that's true or not. Versus if I've gone through the studies and I figured out like, oh, this is bad for the body, this is good for the body, I can make my independent human evaluation and then say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And then I could go back to the AI prompt and be like, okay, this is right, this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then at least for me, because I want my AI to be continually learning, I'll be like, you know what, you missed the mark here. After just reviewing, blah, 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 like this is actually where we could do better. And I think that's actually a really good way to like combine, like where do you draw the line, but also like continue to use it. Because then your AI is getting a sense of like who you are, how you think, and the tool is going to be catered and able to deliver results that are very Adam specific versus like Gabe specific. Yeah. Because I think the other tough part is across the board, you can start to tell what are AI answers. Like I hate when it's like, let's be dynamic, efficient, and actionable in the insights that we're driving for our people. That's so AI like worded, right? Like you get those triple clauses. You get those triple clauses. Yeah. There's always 3 adjectives. Like, please stop, right? Versus, I will go through it and I'll be like, oh, yes, I want to be dynamic, because if we're going to be stagnant, we're doing the same thing every day, that's not going to work in the way that we need it to. If we're going to be efficient, that means we're going to be able to do our processes better today or better tomorrow than we are doing them. Like, there's that human elements of what does this actually mean versus just words on the page. Yeah. And that's the difference when you draw the line and what you're able to provide for people, which is why I always say, like, it's a great brainstorming tool. Do I trust it? Probably.
There's I see the TikToks and Instagram clips all the time of like, I have 16 tabs open doing research and you're using AI. We're not the same, bro. I do believe in that. I think it is so much more valuable for you to have 16 tabs opens to figure out a synonym for like one word versus just letting AI generate it for you, because you're actively engaging in that research. But it's, again, I feel like a lot of what we talked about today is like a fine line. A lot of things are a double-edged sword.
Yep. I would say the other thing that I'd note with this conversation is like, there are always going to be places where like you should push the thinking here. We're giving like such a small subset of use cases and
for sure,
and things to consider across AI. Like, I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but like, what's the market cap on AI? It's in the trillions, right? Like, I think it's quite high. So like, it is a very, very large
market, has to be. I think
right?
You're right. It has to be.
I don't want to give
There's
a
no
proper
way it's
number,
not.
but it's in the trillions.
I mean, if not, it's like upper billions.
Yeah, it's
like way upper.
It's very high, very high, and for that reason, I know it is going to continue to pervade our daily lives in every aspect. But at some point, kind of like the .com, like it's a bubble. It is going to burst, and like, do you want to be on the right or the wrong side of the bubble bursting? Is kind of what I'm getting at in many ways.
Bubble's scary. I think it'll like flatline.
Yeah, but maybe bubble is a little hyperbolic, but regardless, I think there's so many like companies and startups that are just like pushing AI and like, oh, you can basically use it for anything, which
AI for your college.
I don't agree with, right? So use human discernment when you're trying to use it and like figure out what is going to work for you. And I think that's actually a really good place to start to segue into our recap.
I was going to say,
you want to drive it?
Yeah, I can drive it.
Let's do it.
Start out with the bad first, like we did in the episode. In my opinion, if you are in middle school or high school, maybe even early college, no AI, bro. Block it on your laptop, phone. Just no AI. Learn it I want to say hard way, but learn it the normal way. It'll be much more valuable. I will say one thing that popped in my head, so it's not really a takeaway, but new point / takeaway. If anything, if you're a person that's on the side of like, I will never use AI, I will not, I think it's still somewhat valuable to know how it works, how people are using it, and not just in the sense of like what we talked about today, use cases, examples, the technicalities behind it. Learn about prompt engineering, learn about context engineering, learn about the tools available, because you never know if you just have to slip yourself into a conversation to drive your career, and you just know little tidbits that'll just set you up for success in the future. I guess I'll leave the points there because I know you had the other 3, so I'll leave them.
Yeah. So the recap, like the big points that we really wanted to touch on today was 1, start to leverage AI because it is, for lack of a better term, it is the new coding. It is the new coding language. Every company, every like education institution, every government sector, like whether or not they are using it or not, they're having conversations about it. And if you want to at least feel part of the conversation, which you should if you want to continue to progress in your career and your life, then I would say get intimate with it, whatever that means for you. Number 2.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? Number 2, make sure that we're using it in the right use cases. And when I say right, like, are we being sustainable? Are we being thoughtful about it? Like, make sure that when you are using AI, we are going in the right direction, because there are so many things that could potentially happen that would not be on the right side of like ethics or morality, right? But then also making sure that you're not getting yourself into trouble, even if it is ethical. But are you disadvantaging yourself? And that gets into point number 3 of like, make sure you draw that cut line, because critical thinking, human rationale is always going to be that much more powerful than AI, which is interesting because I didn't bring up this point. But like, if you look at AI and like human interaction as like currencies, the more AI usage that like happens, and from a demand perspective, actually the more valuable that human input and human rationale is going to be. But like you don't see it materialize until, I won't say bubble, but like until we hit that plateau of like, okay, we understand what should and shouldn't be used as AI applications. Where do people still bridge that gap? And the first thing that always comes to mind for me is like, I can't get an AI agent to fix my toilet when it's broken. Like, I either need to go on YouTube and watch that video and figure it out myself.
That's the old school way. They don't know nothing about that.
That's not even old school. Like, that's like the 2000s,
2010s
way, right? But you're like, those kinds of things, AI just, unless you've got an actual robot walking around, AI cannot replicate. So continually, if anything, like dig into those moments where you're saying, okay, you know what? I'm still going to be a human being. Like, at the end of the day, I still want to know how to like change the oil in my car. Like, I do know how to do that, but like, I want my kids to know that. Like, and whether we have electric cars or whatever, at that point, like, there are solutions to so many issues that happen in life that I think you should still have the human rationale and thought behind, versus relying on, you know what, I think AI can do this, it can fix it, and like, that's impossible. It's not our current reality, right? So to say, those are the 3 points. This has been a pretty loaded, heavier topic than I think either of us had imagined it would be.
We definitely didn't cover a lot. Probably one of those ones that we might have to revisit.
We'll probably revisit this within a year. We'll probably have to like look at this episode and say like, what has changed? Like, where did we miss the mark? Where were we spot on? But yeah, as always, I can let you take it away.
All right. Did want to end off on a positive note. In everything you do, with or without AI, more so with, given the episode's theme, be authentic, be intentional, be curious, be aware. And with that, like we always say,
repping the brand today.
I guess, repping the brand. As always, we love to say, like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you all in the next episode.
Take care, everyone.